Hi friends, now we will see the middle part of the Norma basalis. In the last video we have seen the anterior part. Now we will see the middle part. As I told you, middle part extends between the posterior margin of hard palate to the imaginary line going in front of the anterior margin of foramen magnum. And this middle part of the Norma basalis is divided into a median part and on either side into paramedian parts. On either side of the median part you will see paramedian parts, same like what we have discussed in the interior of middle canal fossa. Please go to that video and please hold your skull, dry skull in the hand. So you can see a midline median part and on either side paramedian parts. So what are the bones you will see in this middle part of the Norma basalis? If you see here the different bones, we have seen the two bones in the anterior part, maxilla and palatine. Here you will see a midline vomer bone, greater wing of sphenoid in grey color, and purple colored bone is vomer there in the midline, unpaired bone, that is vomer bone, and just behind that you will see sphenoid, body and greater wing, and this pink color structure is they are paired, pair of temporal bone and unpaired occipital bone you will see in the middle part of the Norma basalis. So these are the bones forming the middle part. So when you try to see the features of the middle part of the Norma basalis, you will see the median part. In the median part you will see a posterior free margin of the vomer bone. It is the unpaired bone and it forms the bony part of the nasal septum. I told you we hold the bone in basalis view, but we describe it in anatomical position. But I am trying to hold here in it in an anatomical position. And when you see in anatomical position there, the vomer bone is here with the posterior free margin and presenting choanae on either side of it. And as it goes above, it splits into two alae, articulating with the basis sphenoid, and this suture is called as Schindler's or wedge and groove suture. The diverging alae of the vomer will articulate with the base of the body of the sphenoid or basis sphenoid, forming Schindler's. That is the basi occiput. Basis sphenoid and basi occiput, they are equivalent to the clivus, what you have seen in the interior of the posterior canal fossa. So that you will see here, and that is the medial triggered plate on either side of the choana, and lateral to the medial triggered plate you will see lateral triggered plate. Lateral to medial triggered plate you will see lateral triggered plate, that is lateral triggered plate, and you will see temporal surface of the greater wing of sphenoid forming the roof of infratemporal fossa. Then you will see styloid process covered by tympanic plate of the bone here, foramina lacerum, and other features you appreciate in this middle part are, you will see the apex of the petrous temporal bone, sulcus tubae. So what you see in the median part, you will see the vomer with its diverging alae, basi sphenoid and basi occiput, and on either side of the vomer bone you will see choanae. On lateral to choanae you will see medial triggered plate, and lateral to medial you will see lateral triggered plate. So medial and lateral triggered plates are like a parts of a book, open book. When you open the book, the margin of the book forms the root of the triggered plate and two diverging parts, the medial and lateral. It's like an open book, and you will see foramen ovale, foramen spinosum, foramen lacerum, petrous part, carotid canal there, and you will see the jugular fossa just behind the carotid canal, styloid process, mandibular fossa, articular tubercle, and infratemporal surface of greater wing of sphenoid, which is pentagonal. So these all the features you will see in the middle part of the Norma basalis. So as we have discussed, the middle part is divided into median and paramedian parts. In the median part, what did you see? Vomer. So I am just telling you now in the basal view now. It is not anatomical view. This is a basal view. You can see as it goes above, but here it is below. So remember, in anatomical position we are describing here. So the vomer will diverge and form the Steinlace's vaginal groove suture, and it forms a, it will join with the vaginal process of medial triggered plate, and canal between them is called as vomerovaginal canal. So the canal formed between the alae of the vomer and vaginal process of the medial triggered plate is called as vomerovaginal. As you go in front of the vomerovaginal, you will see palatinovaginal canal. So you can see there the greenish part is palate bone there. You can appreciate now how these bones are articulating here. You can see the vomerovaginal canal will continue, that groove will continue as palatinovaginal canal. So that is vomerovaginal canal formed by the vaginal process of medial pterygoid plate. Vagina means flat, remember that, and that is the alae of the vomer, and that canal between them is called as vomerovaginal canal. Same the flat process of the medial triggered continue and articulate anteriorly with the green part of the palatine bone, that is called as a palatinovaginal canal, transmitting pharyngeal vessels and some nerves. Pharyngeal artery is a branch of third part of maxillary artery here, you can see, but vomerovaginal canal does not pass anything. That is the palatinovaginal canal formed between the palatine bone and vaginal process of medial pterygoid plate. You can see palatinovaginal canal, and this is what you see on either side of the diverging alae of the vomerovaginal canal and palatinovaginal canal. As you go behind the vomer bone in the midline, you will see a sloping surface, just like the clivus. It is the outside of the clivus what we are discussing here. Two bones articulate here, that is the sloping surface forming the roof of the nasopharynx, that is the base formed by, that is a base spinaud, base occiput, and they are held by a primary cartilaginous joint which becomes bony in adults. It is held by a synchondrosis here, base spinaud and base occiput, and this sloping roof of the nasopharynx or outside surface of the clivus gives attachment to the different layers, different fascia. It gives attachment to the buccopharyngeal fascia and the superior constructor muscle, prevertebral fascia, pharyngobasilar fascia. They all are attached here, that you will see from outside to inside. You will see prevertebral, buccopharyngeal, superior constructor, and you will see pharyngobasilar fascia attached here, and this slopy surface forms the roof of nasopharynx. That you should remember, it forms the roof of the pharynx, and that particularly roof of nasopharynx. Coming to the paramedian parts, that is medial pterygoid plate there, diverging into Y shape, that the bony fossa between those two diverging limbs of Y is called as scaphoid fossa. This fossa will give origin to the tensor velae palatini muscle, which forms the palatine aponeurosis, to which all the other palatine muscles are attached in the soft palate. So scaphoid fossa you see in the upper part of the medial pterygoid plate. You are seeing below here because it is a basal view. In anatomical position, scaphoid fossa is above in the upper part of medial pterygoid plate. So that will give origin to the tensor velae palatini. As you go behind this scaphoid fossa there, you will see pterygoid canal in the anterior wall of the foramina lacerum. Foramina lacerum is also called as lazy foramina. It does not transmit anything, but it has two communications. Anterior wall has a communication with the pterygoid canal, whereas posterior wall of the foramen lacerum has communication with the carotid canal, and it transmits the internal carotid artery covered by a sympathetic plexus of nerves horizontally. Vertically it does not pass anything, maybe sometimes some meningeal branches of the ascending pharyngeal artery and emissary veins, but usually in life it is closed by a cartilage, foramen lacerum. So remember that foramen lacerum has communication with two canals. Anterior wall is pterygoid canal, posterior wall is carotid canal, that is the anterior opening of carotid canal. So that is about the upper part of the medial pterygoid plate having scaphoid fossa. And as you see now in the lateral view of anatomical position of the base of skull. Remember anatomical position here. What are the features you will appreciate? So already you have seen the diverging hold your skull like this, that is scaphoid fossa. Then in the middle you will see a process called as processus tuberis, and in the end you will see a hook like projection that is called as pterygoid hamulus. Above you will see scaphoid fossa, middle you will see processus tuberis, and below you will see pterygoid hamulus. Around this pterygoid hamulus, tensor vitae peltani will go medially and attach to the palatine crest as palatine aponeurosis. That you should remember. So three things you will see in the posterior free margin of medial pterygoid plate: scaphoid fossa, processus tuberis. Processus tuberis, it holds the middle part of the auditory tube, the cartilaginous part there, and lower end of the medial pterygoid plate is called as pterygoid hamulus. It will give attachment to the pterygomandibular raphe. Pterygomandibular raphe. Remember, medial pterygoid plate, pterygomandibular raphe. M for mandible, M for medial. So medial pterygoid plate gives attachment to the pterygomandibular raphe. What three things you will observe here? Scaphoid fossa, processus tuberis, and pterygoid hamulus. Around pterygoid hamulus you will see tensor vitae peltani is hooking around it, and this pterygomandibular raphe will give attachment to this superior constrictor muscle there, coming from the pterygoid hamulus to mandible, that is superior constrictor muscle and pterygomandibular raphe. Pterygomandibular raphe itself will have some origin of the superior constrictor. Remember three things in the medial pterygoid plate: scaphoid fossa, processus tuberis, and pterygoid hamulus. Pterygoid hamulus gives attachment to the pterygomandibular raphe, and remaining part of the posterior free margin of the medial pterygoid plate below processus tuberis gives attachment to the muscle called as superior constrictor of pharynx. This is very important. So that is about the medial pterygoid plate. Remember three features, three attachments there. And coming to the lateral pterygoid plate, the lateral pterygoid plate has two surfaces there, and where this medial and lateral pterygoid plates meet, that is called as root, and this is the medial surface of the lateral pterygoid plate. It gives origin to the medial pterygoid muscle. You can see the medial, this is the medial surface of lateral pterygoid plate and gives attachment to the medial pterygoid muscle. Remember, medial pterygoid and lateral pterygoid both come from lateral pterygoid plate. Medial pterygoid come from medial surface, lower head of lateral pterygoid come from lateral surface. Remember that medial pterygoid plate does not give any muscle called as pterygoid. Only lateral pterygoid plate gives two muscles, medial and lateral pterygoid. So both the pterygoid muscles come from lateral pterygoid plate. And you have seen in normal lateralis how this lateral surface of lateral pterygoid plate forms the medial boundary of infratemporal fossa, and where this both medial and lateral pterygoid plate meets, that forms the posterior boundary of pterygopalatine fossa. Remember, this is the lateral pterygoid plate, medial surface to the medial pterygoid muscle, lateral surface gives origin to the lower head of lateral pterygoid muscle, that is the lateral surface forming the medial boundary of infratemporal fossa, that is lateral pterygoid muscle, lateral surface of lateral pterygoid plate giving origin to lateral pterygoid lower head. Remember 4 L's. Lower head of lateral pterygoid come from lateral surface of lateral pterygoid plate. About lateral pterygoid we have discussed in the infratemporal fossa and even in the temporomandibular joint. Please go and watch the videos in the same channel. So that is the medial surface giving origin to the medial pterygoid muscle. Even we have discussed about the medial pterygoid muscle in the infratemporal fossa animation, and in dissection we have seen that. Please go and watch again. That is the medial pterygoid. So this middle part is very important, and we have discussed about the paramedian parts of the middle part, medial pterygoid plate and lateral pterygoid plate. And coming to the part here, as you see here, this lower or the posterior margin of the lateral pterygoid plate is free, and it gives attachment to a ligament called as a pterygospinous ligament, whereas you are seeing pterygoid hamulus. In the medial pterygoid plate, what you have seen? Scaphoid fossa, processus tuberis, and pterygoid hamulus. Pterygoid hamulus gives attachment to pterygomandibular raphe. M for medial, M for mandibular. That is about medial pterygoid plate. Coming to the lateral pterygoid plate, it gives attachment to the pterygospinous ligament from its middle part of the posterior border, pterygospinous ligament, because it connects the lateral pterygoid plate to the spine of sphenoid there. And the spine of sphenoid is very important. It gives attachment to 3 ligaments. One is pterygospinous, that is spine of sphenoid, and one is behind the anterior ligament of malleus, and one below, that is spinomandibular ligament. So spine of sphenoid gives attachment to 3 ligaments. Vertically below spinomandibular, anteriorly, that number 1 is pterygospinous, this 2 is spinomandibular ligament, and 3 behind anterior ligament of malleus. Anterior ligament of malleus comes out of the petrotympanic fissure. About that we will discuss later, along with chorda tympani and anterotympanic artery. So just remember here. So lateral pterygoid plate gives attachment to pterygospinous ligament, whereas the medial pterygoid plate to the pterygomandibular raphe. So just behind this lateral pterygoid plate, you will see foramen ovale and foramen spinosum that we have discussed in the osteology of interior of the middle cranial fossa. Foramen ovale transmits 4 structures: mandibular nerve, accessory meningeal artery, lascipatal nerve, and emissary veins. Foramen spinosum, 3 M's. And coming to the infratemporal surface of greater ring of sphenoid, it is roughly pentagonal. Anteromedially, you will see that it is separated from the inferior orbital fissure. It is pentagonal. And anterolaterally, it forms a crest. Posterolaterally, it articulates with the pink bone, that is temporal bone, squamous part of temporal bone. And posterolaterally, it is articulated with the petrous temporal bone there. Yes, that is the area. And medially, it has articulation, or it is continuous as the lateral pterygoid plate. So it is roughly pentagonal, the infratemporal surface of greater wing of sphenoid. Anteromedially, inferior orbital fissure. Anterolaterally, infratemporal crest. We can see anteromedially, anterolaterally infratemporal crest, and laterally temporal bone. Postero, and that is medially with the lateral pterygoid plate, and posteromedially, it contains the foramen ovale and foramen spinosum, and a bony sulcus is there, between the petrous part of temporal bone and this posteromedial portion of the greater ring of sphenoid, that is sulcus tubae, lodging the auditory tube here in between them. Posteriorly, the sulcus tubae will continue in the bony canal of the middle ear, anterior of the middle ear. Anteriorly, it will lodge on the processus tuberis of the medial pterygoid plate that we have already discussed. And as you come here, you will see that is the location of pterygoid, this sulcus tubae. And the surface, this infratemporal surface gives origin to the upper head of lateral pterygoid plate, not the lower head, upper head of lateral pterygoid muscle. And you will see foramen ovale and foramen spinosum. So this is about the, what you can say, paramedian portions of sphenoid bone. As you go here more laterally from the sphenoid, if you go to the temporal, you will see going to just behind the foramina spinosum, you will see a bony spike called as spine of sphenoid. Yes, that is there, V-shaped structure, spike of the sphenoid, or also called as spine of the sphenoid. Already we have discussed here. It gives attachment to 3 ligaments. What are 3 ligaments? Pterygospinous anteriorly, spinomandibular vertically below, and posteriorly it gives attachment to anterior ligament of malleus, which comes out of the middle ear via petrotympanic fissure. So 3 ligaments, It is related. Anterior ligament of malleus and sphenomandibular ligament, they are derived from Meckel's cartilage, that is sphenomandibular ligament, and this one is pterygospinous ligament. So you can remember 3 ligaments are attached to the spine of sphenoid and also gives attachment to the tensor tympani muscle, and medially it is related to the cauda tympani nerve and laterally it is related to the auriculotemporal nerve. So auriculotemporal nerve is related laterally to the spine of sphenoid, medial to the spine of sphenoid you will see cauda tympani. So these are the 2 nerves related, and 3 ligaments are related to it, and it also gives origin to this tensor tympani, and some fibers of levator veli pelti may take origin from there. And coming to the foramina lacerum now, if you see, that is sulcus tubae, what we have discussed. It will continue in the bony canal of the anterior wall of the middle ear or tympanic cavity, that you can see there. So this is what you see in the sphenoid bone, and coming to the other parts of the paramedian part, that is articular tubercle, anterior root and posterior root enclosing the mandibular fossa. Anterior root is horizontal, posterior root is anteroposterior. You can see mandibular fossa there. Articular part of the mandibular fossa that we have discussed in the previous video on temporomandibular joint. Please go through that. You can see anterior articular part is formed by the squamous bone, whereas the posterior non-articular part is formed by the tympanic plate. It is separated from the joint by parotid gland, that is mandibular fossa. This is tympanic plate. This tympanic plate forms the anterior wall of the bony external acoustic meatus that we have discussed in normal lateralis. Please go and see. Why I am telling you to go and see? Because you can correlate and integrate as you go along for the further topics. It will make you understand easily. That's why. Whereas the squamous part and tympanic part are separated by a fissure called as squamotympanic fissure. That is the squamous part, articular part of mandibular fossa. This is the tympanic part, non-articular part of the mandibular fossa, and that is squamotympanic fissure between them. Whereas this squamotympanic fissure is divided into 2 parts, medially by a petrous, downturned edge of petrous temporal bone, into 2 parts again. If you see here, between the squamous part and a tympanic part, you are appreciating a fissure. What you call a fissure between squamous and tympanic bone? Squamotympanic fissure. And there you are seeing a higher part is petrous bone, which divides it into Y shape. Between the 2 limbs of the Y you will see petrous bone. So that fissure is further divided into petrosquamous fissure anteriorly and petrotympanic fissure posteriorly. So this is squamotympanic fissure, this is petrotympanic fissure, and anteriorly what you see? Petrosquamous fissure. So that is the petrosquamous, petrotympanic and squamotympanic fissures. Remember that. And petrotympanic fissure transmits 3 structures: anterior ligament of malleus, anterior tympanic artery, and cauda tympani. You have seen the cauda tympani joining the lingual nerve in the infratemporal fossa. It will come from this fissure. And tympanic plate, it ensheaths the anterior wall of styloid process that we have already seen in the normal lateralis. Styloid apparatus is discussed in detail there. Please go and see. So coming to this one, just a brief revision here. Squamotympanic fissure divided by petrous into petrotympanic fissure posteriorly, petrosquamous fissure anteriorly. Why I am stressing this? Because it is very difficult to appreciate these features. Try to appreciate that and remember the things. The patelotympanic fissure is transmitting three structures: antetympanic artery, anteligament of malleus, and chorda tympani. Coming to the petrous part here, you can see petrous part here. It is articulating laterally with the sphenoid bone and medially with the occipital bone. You can see sphenoid, petrous, and occipital. And in front of the apex of the petrous bone, you will see a foramina, that is foramina lacerum. Anterior wall which canal? Pterygoid. Posterior wall which canal? Carotid. You can see that is carotid canal. It will continue, yes, and end there. So internal carotid artery surrounded by sympathetic plexus of nerves pass through this carotid canal and open posteriorly in the foramen lacerum. Then it will continue in the carotid groove of the middle canal fossa that we have discussed already. And even you can go and watch a video on internal carotid artery, course, relations, branches. That is pterygoid canal, carotid is there. And usually in life, the foramen lacerum is covered by a cartilage, plate of cartilage. Remember that. That is carotid canal. It will continue here. So pterygoid canal may transmit this artery of pterygoid canal and Vidian nerve, that is a nerve of pterygoid canal. Nerve of pterygoid canal is formed by deep petrosal nerve joining with the greater petrosal nerve, and this just behind the apex you will see a quadrilateral area giving origin to the levator vellae palatini muscle of the soft palate. As it elevates the soft palate, it is called as levator vellae palatini. It also dilates the tube because it lies medial to the sulcus tubae. It is also called as this has some action on the levat, this artery tube. And as you go here, just in front of the anterior margin of foramina magnum, you will see jugular fossa, styloid process, and stylomastoid foramina that we have discussed already in norma lateralis. And coming to the attachments here, in the middle part you will see the canals there, umorovaginal and palatinovaginal canals transmitting the structures there. You can see the palatinovaginal canal was transmitting pharyngeal vessels. And coming to the attachments here of the medial pterygoid plate, you can see the muscle here, tensor vellae palatini, taking origin from the scaphoid fossa, hooking around the pterygoid hamulus and attaching to the posterior nasal spine or palatal aponeurosis. You can see there the medial pterygoid plate is here. Here you can appreciate the attachments of the medial pterygoid plate. You can see superior constrictor is taking origin from the posterior margin of medial pterygoid plate below processus tuberis, because above superior constrictor there is opening of artery tube along with the levator vellae palatini and ascending pharyngeal vessels and all. Foramina of Morgagni will be there above the superior constrictor. Now you can see here medial lateral pterygoid plates, that is pterygomandibular raphe, giving origin to the lower fibers of superior constrictor, and you can see that is scaphoid fossa there, arrow was showing scaphoid fossa. And now you can see the attachments of the lateral, both lateral and medial pterygoid plate. You can see the superior constrictor there, and lateral pterygoid plate medially it gives origin to the medial pterygoid muscle and lateral surface to the lateral pterygoid muscle. And you can see there, you can see that is medial pterygoid, lateral pterygoid coming from lateral surface, that is pterygospinous ligament, and you will see this. So what are the three ligaments attached to spine of sphenoid? Pterygospinous, anterligament of malleus, and spinomandibular. This is spinomandibular ligament. Whereas pterygomandibular raphe attached to the medial pterygoid plate. From the anterior margin of pterygomandibular raphe you are seeing buccal muscle. From the posterior margin, superior constrictor. So pterygomandibular raphe gives adjustment to buccal anteriorly, superior constructor posteriorly, whereas lateral trigger plate, medial surface, medial trigger muscle, lateral surface, lateral trigger muscle, and this is the eustachian tube or auditory tube. You can see lodging in the sulcus tubae, lateral to the petrous bone and medial to the sphenoid bone. Tensor veli palatini is closely related. It is also called as the dilated tube. It tenses the soft part and elevates the or dilates the auditory tube. Tensor veli palatini is called as dilated tube muscle, and you can see the foramen ovale transmitting the mandibular nerve, emissary veins, axillary meningeal artery and lesser petrosal nerve. You can see here, that is foramen ovale transmitting the structures, 4 structures, male, MALE, mandibular nerve, axillary meningeal artery, lesser petrosal nerve and emissary veins. The isolated view of the sphenoid bone, foramen ovale with the mandibular nerve and emissary veins. Just behind the foramen ovale you are seeing foramen spinosum transmitting the middle meningeal artery and vein and middle meningeal nerve. You can see foramen spinosum, and you can see there the horizontal course of the internal carotid artery. It enters the skull via this carotid canal, then passes through that carotid canal there, you can see, and opens into posterior margin of the or posterior wall of foramina lacerum and enters the interior of the cavity and lies on either side of the sella turcica as carotid groove. You can see there, that is the foramen lacerum. That is the intracranial course of internal carotid artery. You can see there, that is the intrapetrous course of the internal carotid artery within the bone. And coming to the attachments of sphenospinoid, so pterygospinous ligament, and you will see the sphenomandibular ligament is also attached there.